for another power panel. How many of you actually use TikTok? Okay. How many of you are a geriatric millennial who gets their TikToks off of Reels on Instagram? Yeah! Well, either way, I think that we have all seen this absolutely fanatical new form of content. I have never used it for recruiting, and I am really excited to learn from the three of you, how we're doing it, what's possible. I thought we would start with maybe just getting from you all what experience you have with TikTok to date. I'll start with you.
I'm Jess, and I'm a TikTok fanatic. I am definitely on Team TikTok. I use it a lot for my business, which we sell a lot of online courses. I also do consulting in the recruiting and HR side of things, particularly on digital media. But it's a great way to set up a funnel and engage your candidates. Have them ask you questions, unless you don't want that type of thing, which I think sometimes that we do. But I think there's a lot of opportunity. So I'm excited to talk today.
All right, my name's Allie. I am on the other side of it where I need to be convinced of how to use TikTok in recruiting. So I'm excited to hear what both of you share, because at this point I don't use it that way. I use it more on a personal side. I do learn new things from TikTok, so I'm curious kind of where the overlap could be. But I'm going to be the part of this panel that's a little bit kind of poking some holes in what you say.
Bring it.
Ladies, please.
I'm Tracy Parsons, and I'm the CEO and co-founder of Flockity. And
Is that the winner? Are you guys the best HR new product of the year?
we are the best new HR startup of the year as of 2 days ago. Thank you. And I use TikTok personally, right? So I started using it personally because I found it to be this delightful rabbit hole of content to fall down. And we actually stood up an influencer marketing platform and product that 74% of our clicks to our customers' jobs come from TikTok. So people are using TikTok to learn more about their jobs and how to be better at their jobs. And then on the back end, we are serving up links to jobs that we are pay-per-clicking on.
Okay, so I really do want to talk about use cases. I mean, as we know that there's lots of ways to come to market and get message out there, but it depends on the message, depends on the audience, depends on the call to action. And so right at the end there, Tracy, you were saying you actually are driving traffic to jobs. What else are you looking at, Jess? How are you using TikTok? What are some of the outcomes that you're trying to drive?
Outside of candidates, which I think we all want, we want more qualified candidates coming to our job openings. It's also an awareness play. It's a way to connect with the community and build relationships and rapport. And I don't think that we do enough of those kind of things. But I will tell you that TikTok feels a lot like early Twitter to me in a way, because you can have direct access to somebody, a representative. They're kind of like your insider scoop, where you can ask them a question like, hey, is this opening still available? Or talk to me about your 401k. You're going to get those kinds of questions. And then when somebody from your brand responds to them, it just feels really special, like you matter. And I always felt that way in the early days of Twitter when Gary Vee or somebody really influential or Hilton responded to me and took care of a problem. So that's kind of where we are outside of driving traffic, but I definitely think both are incredibly helpful.
Can I ask, and I'm going to come over to you, Tracy. Driving traffic, how are we targeting people? Is it hashtags? Are hashtags back? And how targeted can you get? I mean, I think sometimes it might feel on Twitter for me, shouting into a void, right? And especially for something like employer brand, every penny is precious. So maybe we can just talk a little bit about how do we actually drive some actual outcomes.
Well, and I've said this 1,000 times in my career, people believe people before they'll ever believe a brand.
I don't know if I believe that.
Well, you should. reality, like think of your own social habits right now. Like when you come across a brand message on any social platform, what do? Right, you're just totally swiping away from it,
Yeah.
which is why the influencer market matters to us, right? So we do, there's ways of targeting it, and it is like the early days of Twitter, because there is billions of minutes of content being created about anything in the world, right? Literally anything in the world. So, you know, you think about hospitality jobs, you think about technology jobs. There are people who are talking about how to do that job really, really well. And then TikTok right now is the #1 search engine for Gen Z. It's crushing Google. And so when they want to know something about the world, they go to TikTok and they search TikTok for what they want to learn. So if they want to learn how to be a better whatever it is job they're doing, they're finding influencers, and then they're obviously creating content about how to be good at their job and driving traffic to ultimately jobs. Yeah, go.
So I guess I have a question for both of you. What about like companies that are newer to this, right? They're not leveraging this as much as maybe they could be, but how do you circumvent like cancel culture, right? You hear about some companies that maybe will put some stuff out there on trend, off trend, and it could work against them in that sense. So like, what's your response to that? How do you circumvent that, or you know, kind of try to escape the line between getting canceled?
I think we all run that risk of potentially whatever brand that we're representing or ourselves. The key on TikTok with other kinds of social media is just to be authentic and be real. So if something is not working, you say, hey, sorry this isn't working right now, but I appreciate that you brought it to my attention, and then actually do something about it. That is going to go a lot further than just avoiding the question, which we see a lot on like Glassdoor and Indeed pages, right? We just don't respond. And then inevitably somebody will probably make a TikTok about the fact that you didn't respond, and then force legal or whoever to spring into action PR, right? Engagement is just really important. I have dealt with trolls on TikTok personally. They're everywhere on the internet. You can do this cool thing called blocking and just delete. And then, you know, you have tried to answer the question, solve the problem, do whatever, but if they're being disrespectful, harassing, or whatever, you're in control of who you bring into your environment.
Yeah, I just support the accountability message, right? So, and being careful who you're working with. Like with our platform, they're all vetted. Like they're all vetted constantly. All of our influencers are vetted constantly. So we're looking at their past content, we're looking at their messaging, because if we're trying to sell clicks to companies that corporate's gonna see, then this has to be really good content that's not gonna get anybody in trouble, right? Like that's the thing. And I think it's a vigilance, but I also think it's an accountability and making sure that, you know, you're paying attention to who you're working with and who you're partnering with to ensure that you're getting, you know, really good results by not making sure that you're focused on people who are gonna create content that's not ideal.
So if I may also play devil's advocate, I think that I completely agree with authenticity, but that's been the name of the game for employer brand,
Yeah.
right? We need to show up authentically. We know that's extremely difficult to do, especially in corporate environments. We do need to run things through a lot of checks, and it ends up getting really filtered, and what started as an authentic message might end up getting kind of flat. So how do we encourage utilization? How do we encourage amplification, you know, on this kind of platform while not getting things watered down and bogged down? You know, I literally don't know. Is there a way for me as a company to manage the content that might be going out through either our channels or through our influencers? Like, that's the loss of control that I think might worry people, is you're gonna run content through your corporate channel, and that's gotta go through all the, you know, comms permissioning. How do I control the rest of the content? We had talked about the shelf life of this content is actually much longer than just that consumer, right? So I don't know do you know where I'm going with this? It's like, how do we have authenticity, but you do need control. you do need to be able to like hit, not just block people, but like shut down maybe some voices that went a little too real, and suddenly it might blow up the whole experiment.
I think if you're working with employees and they're posting content, having a solid training and explaining what the mission and goals and how you're measuring success is really important, because we can't control, and this has been the name of the game for since we've all been on social and thought about this. One of my friends used to run a TA at AT&T, and they did this thing with Snapchat back in the day. Remember Snapchat?
Yeah.
Still more users than TikTok actually right now, which is kind of crazy. But they had the Snapchat glasses, and so they would mail the glasses to a new employee for the week, and they would do a Snapchat takeover of the company account, which at the time, nobody was doing. It was amazing, and it was super risky. They didn't have any issues, I think, because they were really clear and really selective about who they chose to work with. And I think that we have to start small in a controlled environment and prove the model before we move on where something is, getting maybe millions of views. Also, I will say, the goal isn't to get millions of views. The goal is not to go viral here. The goal is to reach the small subset of people that are qualified for your job, because we don't want what is already happening for us to end up with another 957 unqualified candidates for that one role. Now we have twice as many people that we need to vet, right? So for me, that's the most important thing. I would just encourage you to be creative. I do have a list on my TikTok of kind of a running list of TikToks that I'm liking in different industries. And if you go to Workology blog, which is my TikTok, it's over there, it's called TA and recruiting, and it's just a list. And I think we have about 30 now. I have another 30 to make, but I'm just slowly, I know, my team finds them, we look at them and evaluate them and decide if they're worthy. But they don't have to be good to be effective.
They must go viral.
They shouldn't.
They shouldn't.
Let's talk about that, because everybody wants it to be perfect.
Yeah, that's one of the things that companies get really upset about. Like, they want it to be super polished and super slick, and that is not gonna play. Like, this is the faceplant video network. Like, people like when you mess up, people like when you stumble a little bit, because it's real. Like, that happens, and if you've ever put yourself on camera to make a 15-second video, it's horrifying, right? Like, and so she's spot on. You've gotta have great training. You've also gotta let people mess up, and you don't want it to be polished, because the goal isn't to go viral. You're right, like, our best influencers have a very small audience, but they're really powerful in that audience, right? It's about driving the message, but it's about creating that authenticity, and that's such a shit buzzword. Sorry, that was, but just be regular, right? Like me right now, stumbling over my words and cussing.
I just want to say also too, for the TA leaders here, this could be a real opportunity for you to be an expert at your organization and bring in a new media and be the go-to person for this, and an opportunity for you to build your personal brand. Please don't get scared. You don't have to look perfect. You don't have to have all the things. You can be in your garage walking with the wind blowing and still saying something meaningful. I personally, the reason I'm on TikTok, other than we are driving engagement and I can direct that to applicants or sales, but y'all aren't on there. So I'm automatically great at it even when I'm not. There's not competition.
Right.
So get over there and make your little niche of TikTok, whatever it is, recruiter talk, clean talk, whatever talk, and just be yourself. And you can become an expert without a lot of work. You already are an expert. You just have to take the leap and take a chance to get over there. I've looked like crap in a lot of videos, and there's misspellings and the stuff on, those are the ones that do the best.
Yes.
And then you're like cringing because you forgot to do something, but it resonates with the people because we're human beings.
Can I ask,
Okay, so I really like the practical, like big picture advice, like guidance at the high level. Let's dig in though. What is an example of good content? This is a talent acquisition event. So for talent acquisition, if I were the head of TA for a company big or small, what kind of content should I be thinking about trying to get out there? I mean, am I gonna talk about a job that I'm trying to hire? Because I feel like that was what we did with social media. It's like, oh, let's just start advertising our jobs, and maybe that's not what people want. So what should we be getting out there?
Talk about your company. Talk about your company, but don't talk about it in the way that would be approved. Okay, so talk about what it's really like to work there. The two biggest barriers for candidates when it comes to applying for jobs, and I know a lot of us are drowning in applications, but the reason we're drowning in applications is because we're not effectively screening people out before they submit that application, right? So what I want you to do is, if you're a leader of TA, tell me what it's really like to work there, which is barrier number one, and tell me what it's really like to do this job. I've read a lot of your job descriptions. They don't tell me squat. What am I really gonna be doing there? Tell me that. Tell me that honestly. Tell me the good, the bad, and the ugly, because I want to know that before I invest my time, right? Tell people what it's like.
Should I be worried that I'm going against company policy for saying some of these things?
Check your company policy. Okay, so make sure that you're not violating company policies. But there's a way to say things. Like, one of my favorite stories in my history of doing recruitment marketing was one of our customers had an incredible turnover rate on this one specific job. And I was like, can I see your exit interview data? And in the exit interview data, over and over again, it said, over and over again, I had no idea I'd be working with blood. Oh, that's a miss, right? So instead of putting it, you'll be working with blood in the job description, we did all of their social channels, and we had people in the job recommending products to get rid of blood stains. There's a way to talk about things that is not aggressive, but that can get the point across. Guess what? If you're getting out blood stains at work, you may be working with blood.
I think, like, from a different perspective, I guess kind of like on the outside looking in, because I don't live in this world, I can see where there's some use cases, like Jim and Taylor and y'all, like, recruiting for cruise ships, right? Like a day in the life of working on a cruise ship, right? Or a day in the life of working for XYZ, and how that could hit a certain audience. So I do believe there's a certain type of persona that you're trying to reach, and it can be very successful when you do reach that. But almost kind of like that indirect content, that's my takeaway from this conversation. Indirect content almost goes further, your experience, rather than being very structured about it. Whenever I look at TikTok, before going down any specific, rabbit holes that I wind up in, I enjoy the content that I see about maybe interview tips and tricks, or like these types of things that I think are good for like the audience, for people that are applying for roles and stuff. So like, I feel like even companies starting there of like, here's some tips and tricks about what to expect in an interview process, because that's a huge gap in the market where candidates, early career, things like that, they don't even know what to expect. So some kind of like education in that could be a good place to start. That's my thought.
I was going to say that we need to do this. We need to put the content out there. We need to explain the job, the real, the good, the bad, and the ugly, because we want less candidates coming, meaning more qualified people, so that we have less interviews to get to that hire. We need to do this now versus what is coming. And that is AI robots that you can just apply for a job. And there's already one here in Austin that they're testing, and it's so fascinating because I got in an argument with the founder. I was like, thanks, it's gonna make my job 4 times harder.
Yeah.
Because now I have all these candidates, because it's gonna match with our AI matching software when they come through. So get your content out there to build that relationship, so that hopefully when that comes, you're ready. And we might have to put some more steps into the vetting process. But as far as like video types, I have a little list. I think you need to go with your comfort level. And by your comfort level, I mean your manager's comfort level. So hopefully you're like, I'm ready to go. It doesn't mean you're dancing. Let me just say that, okay? It could. That is fun. So, job postings are easy. That's an easy video for most of you. And it doesn't have to be complicated. It could be a 15-second video with, a link or go here in my bio. A day in the life video, I think those are great. Sometimes it's the recruiter, sometimes it's an employee. One of my favorites right now is from Reno 911 department, and they just put out a nice little video that talks about what it's like to work there and why the benefits are killer. And they have some great things. Any culture videos, there's a favorite one of mine where, and I think I've just posted it this week, an employee's birthday, and so everybody's on Zoom, and they all dressed up as that employee, and they made it into a TikTok, and they turned on the screen. So that was a fun one. Any information or resource. So anytime you get a question from a job seeker, we have those lists, right, of those frequently asked questions that they keep coming through. Make a list. Those are all your videos. And don't just make a video of you talking. Make a video with text on the screen and a trending audio. Make another video with you taking film of you walking down the street and you do a voiceover. Those are all different ways, because sometimes it doesn't hit the first time with the content. It doesn't all have to be original. And then the last is just Q&A. Anytime somebody asks me a question, like in person, or maybe somebody asks me something here, guess what? I have a new video idea. I keep it on my phone, and then when I have a moment, I will batch and I will make like 30 videos. That's why there's still content going out today. It's probably the best thing. Yeah, I had a question this morning about HR certification, because we offer training in that area. Somebody was asking, and it makes their day when I respond. And hopefully it gives them helpful information. So imagine if a candidate got an answer from you about a job posting, because right now, the career advice on TikTok is from resume writers and career coaches, which I don't have anything against. However, they oftentimes have not done our job. If they have, it's been a very long time, and they're sending misinformation. So let's educate them, because they're looking for a lot of answers.
Down here in the front, we have a question.
Back to your point about the good, bad, and the ugly, I think that's a pretty common phrase for people when talking about employer brand and saying we need to showcase the ugly. And so while we're going through these ideas, just wondering if you have any thoughts on how to control the ugly or portray the ugly, because I think that gets overshadowed a lot.
Did you guys hear that question? It's about how do we portray the ugly? How can we actually deliver the real? Should we care about being cringe? That's a question on that too. It's because the ugly might be
You gotta test everything.
okay, yeah.
That's the thing to Jess's statement. Make a ton of content. Some of it's gonna hit, some of it's gonna not. The algorithm is gonna tell you what hits and what doesn't. Then you know to double down on that, right? So when it comes to the ugly, I would just respond with ugly as in the eye of the beholder. There are certain brands that I would never work for, right? Because it's just not a fit for me. Know what your fit is and talk about the fit, right? And there's a way to talk about that. There are certain brands that aren't for everybody. It's okay to talk about that, right? And being very clear who it is right for, right? You can say the ugly, but it may be ugly to you. It's not ugly to the great candidate.